Hello everyone, I wanted to make a quick follow-up video to what we talked about last time, maybe give some more examples and clarify some things so that we can better understand the three paths. In the last video, I used example chords that were all the same quality when we talked about, movements from diminished to these kind of chords, right? Major sixes, or minor sevens. All of those are the same quality of chord. But what about other chords? What about dominants? Or what about minor sixes? How do we look at the diminished movements, the three paths, moving to those? Well, let's take an example. Let's take that C7. So if we take C7, that chord is made up from mostly wind, right? We have three wind notes, E, G, and B flat, and the root is an earth note. So even though it's an uneven mix of earth and wind, it still is a mix of earth and wind. So that counts as a sand chord. So clockwise from sand is earth. Counterclockwise from sand is wind, and across from sand on the elemental wheel is fire. So that's how you would know all of the movements. Piercing would be fire, like that. So you could, create movement by moving between C7 and using the fire diminished. So like this. If you wanted a pierce sound. And if you wanted to do a perching motion, you would take the element clockwise from C7, which we said is earth. So we just moved from earth. Has a similar feeling to what we're used to from perching into a... It's different. It's different though. It has a different quality, right? But the fact of the matter is we're still using the element that's clockwise from it. Okay, counterclockwise. So counterclockwise would be using wind, and this one sounds, I guess, like the weakest in my opinion. This particular move from wind, which would be going plumb to C7, just reminds me of the song Caravan, because all that's happening is a D flat is moving to a C. In other words, a note from the plumb diminished just moves down to fall onto the root of the dominant. Like that. Okay, let's take a different chord and a different quality now. Like if we have a major or a minor 6 or a minor 7 flat 5, half diminished, however you want to think about it. This quality of chord, So right there, I was just using the perch diminished to that particular chord to create movement, piercing movement. Piercing into the next inversion, piercing into the next inversion, and again. and again. So how can we break it down? Well, first of all, the chord I'm playing is D half diminished, or F minor 6. So that means that the diminished triad that I have is D, F, and A flat. Those are all fire notes. And the last note in the chord is a C, which is an earth note. So that makes this chord a magma chord or a lava chord. And the element that's across from it on the circle is wind. So that means that for piercing movement, if I want to get a piercing sound, then I have to use the wind diminished. I could also maybe borrow some wind notes. Or like, you know, just borrowing a note for a second. Or like this. Borrowed a note and moved it back. So here's like the bass chord, right? The notch chord in question. Borrow a note from the piercing diminished, and then let it fall, let it resolve. I can do it with 2 notes. So I'm just piercing the chord. Okay, if we wanted to perch onto this chord, which is a magma chord, we would have to use the element clockwise from it, which is fire. So it would be like this. Like that. So even though in this movement only one note is actually changing, I think it's an important note to change, and it really gives it that sound that it gives it a feeling that I think is characteristic of perching. You know, same thing, but it's just minor now. So that's perching onto a minor 6 chord or a half diminished chord. Okay, falling onto it. To fall plumb onto it, we would have to use the element that is counterclockwise from lava, which is earth. So, and actually that sounds kind of cool. Let's see, another earth. Yeah, I kind of like that. Earth again. So all of these movements are cool sounds. Like we said in the last video, we should really be able to do all of them to whatever chord, because each type of resolution has a certain feeling that it creates, and we gotta have command over that, you know? So let's do a couple of more examples, just so we can sort of understand the concept. Let's take G7. Okay, it's made from the notes G, B, D, and F. So right here, we've got 3 fire notes. Okay, and then here, we've got 1 wind note. If we put G7 in the circle diagram, it would be like this. Then we would have fire over here. Okay, and then earth would be down here. And then here's G7. Wind to G7 would be your perch. Fire to G7 would be going plumb. And then earth to G7 would be piercing. All right, let's do one more. Let's do A flat minor 6, also known as F half diminished. This chord has 3 fire notes: F, A flat, and B, and it's got 1 earth note. Let's put fire over here, earth over here, and then wind down here. Now we have our circle diagram, right? So that would make fire to this chord, perch. Earth to this chord would be plum. And then wind would be pierce. All right, I hope that helped. Go ahead and experiment. Do some study, look into these, mess around with diminished, going from whatever diminished, all 3 diminished, to every chord, every chord you want to get good at resolving to, just as practice and just to see what it sounds like. Anyway, I hope that helped. I'll see you guys in the next one.